My name's Tim Moore. I'm the Executive Director of the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, and we're here tonight to say congratulations to a great class of inductees. What we do at the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, our mission is to keep the memories alive of all the great sportsmen and women that have participated either by being born in this area or by having accomplished their career in the St. Louis area. One of the things that we do is we recognize men and women from all different kinds of sports and all levels. Maybe two of the most unique things and people that we've inducted a polo player and a rugby team. And they're pretty different from each other. The rugby team is just what you imagine from a rugby team when they were at the event. The horsemen had some great ideas and supposed to be ranked one of the best in the world. Sports are an integral part of so many of our lives, and the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame is proud that we are the instrument that helps keep those memories alive. We are a virtual Hall of Fame. We do not have a home. Which you may say, what, you don't have a home? We had a home for a while at the Enterprise Center. We were there for about 10 years, and the Blues politely asked us not to be in the Enterprise Center anymore. They needed more space for kiosks, so that's one reason why we had to get out of there. We've tried to find places, but the cost is just out of reach right now. And it's frustrating at times, but by being a virtual Hall of Fame, you can visit our Hall of Fame from your home at any time that you want. If you've noticed in the program, we have a bio for each one of the inductees. And if you go online, we have the same bio, but we also have a video of their introduction and their interview on stage. We used to interview people the first 2 years. Used to hand them the microphone and let them speak. And about 11:30 or 12, we were wrapping things up. And so we had to change our ways. So the interview style has really been met and made a lot of people happy that attend our events. One other thing that you'll find on your website is a nomination form. If you think you know someone that deserves to be in the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, don't hesitate to go to the website, complete the nomination form, and we'll put them in with the rest of nominations that we already have. Sometimes people think if I nominate somebody, they're going to get selected immediately. That doesn't always happen. So you have to have a little patience there. We're active on social media. We're on Facebook, X, and I guess I should say, in parentheses, Twitter. I don't know why they renamed it if they're going to keep putting Twitter in parentheses. And LinkedIn. So follow us on any of these platforms. We also have our own YouTube channel. And in fact, this past week, we gained our 1,000th subscription to our YouTube channel. And that means a lot to us to know that people are going to YouTube to watch the videos. There are a number of people that I want to thank tonight for making it possible. First of all, to our presenting sponsor, Simmons, Hanley, Conroy. Thank you very much. One Digital, our reception sponsor, thank you also. To those who bought VIP packages, which gave them a shot at an ad in the program, we thank you. To all of those who independently bought ads for the program, we thank you also. To the members of our Hall of Fame team who work unselfishly to make the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame the best that it can be, I thank you very much. They're back in the back of the room. You saw some of them when they were checking you in. Most importantly, I want to thank all of you for attending tonight's enshrinement dinner. It's gratifying for us to see such a great attendance, and I know that the inductee that you're here to honor is humbled by your presence. It's now my pleasure to introduce to you our MC for the evening. This is a man who has attended 1,671 consecutive St. Louis Blues home games. I've known him since 1981 when I was coaching at Althoff High School, and he was doing play-by-play for some of my games with WIB Radio. He's the PA voice of the Blues, a man who himself was inducted into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame in 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Calhoun.
Thanks, Coach. If Tim seemed a little uptight tonight, it's only because his speech that he had so carefully prepared somehow was not printed out properly tonight. And he was looking at his iPhone down here going, "Ah." So he can be forgiven for being a little uptight tonight. By the way, you know, when I was broadcasting Tim's games back in the day, I have some vivid memories of those games. He was coaching at Althoff. I was working for WIBV, the Belleville station at the time. We did a lot of games. Joe May and I. Who remembers Joe May? Oh, yeah. Legend. So some of those games that Tim was coaching, I remember turning to Joe and saying things like, "What the hell is he still playing that man-to-man defense for?" Or, "What's he trying to run with that team for?" But somehow he made it work. He's a pretty darn good coach. So thanks, Tim, for having me tonight. Thanks to the Hall of Fame Selection Committee and the Board of Directors for inviting me back tonight. Happy Lincoln's birthday, everybody. Who had the day off? Go Abe, yeah. Here's a Lincoln quote for you that I thought was kind of appropriate tonight. "Always bear in mind that your own resolution to succeed is more important than any other one thing." And a lot of you people tonight have gone the extra mile to be honored by us, and we're so honored that you are here with us tonight. We will be honoring people who, whether they resolve to succeed or not, or were just doing what they loved, have been unusually successful and deserving of our praise and recognition tonight. I'm not a joke teller. I don't tell jokes. That never goes well for me, so you don't have to worry about, well, I'll try one. Went to the doctor the other day, and the doctor says, "I'm working on 4 cases of VD, but he's better now." See, I told you I wasn't very good at that, so. All right. My main function here tonight is not joke telling. It's to get these people up on stage, get them honored, and do it in a fairly expeditious manner. So we'll try to do that. If you've been to one of these events before, as Tim said, we do interviews. We try to keep them to 10 minutes. But last year at our enshrinement event, 1 year ago, pretty much tonight, Tom Kyle, the great Edwardsville coach, came up on stage, and Joe Pott asked him one question. And it turned into a 20-minute stand-up routine, and we couldn't stop because everybody was rolling on the floor laughing. It was just great. But we're going to try to keep them all to somewhere around 10 minutes tonight so you can get out of here at a reasonable hour. We have a number of people with us here in the room tonight who have already been inducted into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame. Would you people please stand to be recognized and accept our applause? Please, Hall of Famers, Steve Porter, Rich Soje, I'm wearing my Blues ring tonight, Rich. I should have worn my Grizzlies championship ring from 2003. I do the Grizzlies during the summertime, so thanks, Rich Soje, for sticking with me for a while. I appreciate that. All right, so let's move on. As I say at all Blues games, let's make some noise tonight, and on with the show. So our first enshrinement of the evening honors a man who played the game of football at the highest level. And he went on to coach the game with tremendous success in high school and college. Dean Renn grew up in West Frankfort, Illinois, and was a four-sport athlete in high school there before accepting a football scholarship at the University of Illinois, where in 1954 he was second in receiving in the Big Ten Conference. Randy will tell you how many passes he caught that year when he does the interview here in a minute. After his college career, his career as a coach, Coach Renn got started at several Southern Illinois schools, then came to Belleville Township in 1961. When the district split into two high schools in '67, Coach Renn was named the first football coach at then Belleville East High School. It wasn't long before he coached the Lancers to an undefeated season in '69, and the team was ranked second in the state of Illinois. During Coach Renn's 16-year tenure as head coach at East, the team never experienced a losing season. Also a successful golf coach for the Lancers, he went on to coach running backs for the football program at McKendree University. Please read Coach Renn's complete bio in tonight's program. Already enshrined in the Illinois Football Coaches Hall of Fame and the St. Louis Metro Football Coaches Hall of Fame, we are pleased tonight to welcome Coach Dean Renn into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame. Please welcome him with your applause. The lady in blue is Barb Calhoun. She'll be going home with me tonight, fellas, so don't get any ideas. She is our Mike Caddy this evening. Randy Carricker, who we just announced is going to go into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame later this year, is here to conduct the interview. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Tom. All right, let's start with this because this is important. Who's here with you tonight, Coach? Who's here at the Hall of Fame?
A large contingent, several relatives, and a lot of ex-football players, and some ex-golfers.
That's great. How much does that mean to you, by the way, to have your former players that you obviously had an impact on, have them here tonight?
Someone told me around 35.
That's great. And that's what coaching is all about. Okay, you played receiver at Illinois. Tom said that I would announce the number. Do you remember how many catches you had when you were second in the Big Ten in receiving?
How many catches?
How many catches did you have?
I don't have a clue.
17 catches. The
Yeah.
game has changed a little bit, hasn't it? But that was, despite some of the records that the Illini had, you played with J.C. Caroline, who played 10 years in the NFL as a cornerback, and Abe Woodson, who played 9 years. That was a team that had some talent at Illinois, wasn't it?
There was a couple others. If you remember Bobby Mitchell, he was a running back at Illinois, and he became a wide receiver for the Washington Redskins. He drove me crazy when he was a freshman because he was a couple years behind me, and the freshmen would come over and entertain the varsity. And I had to contain him, and it was a problem, big problem. So probably one of the better known players that I played with was a high school All-American quarterback. He came to Illinois and converted, well, before that, my freshman year, the NCAA was talking about football being the tail that wags the dog, so they limited substitution in D1. And you could only go in one time each quarter. So anyway, the player I'm talking about, he had a little problem remembering the audibles, so they converted him to fullback and linebacker. And he later played for the Green Bay Packers by the name of Ray Nitschke.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. When did you decide, Coach, that you wanted to coach?
Oh, I grew up as a farm boy. I was a all-state FFA farmer, and I was president of the FFA my senior year in high school. But my dad was a coal miner, and I didn't want to be a coal miner, so I was going to be a farmer. And I love sports. People used to ask me, what's your favorite sport? And I would say, whichever one is in season. But anyway, I had several scholarship offers in football and one in basketball. But I felt football was my strong suit. So when I got the scholarship to Illinois, I thought, hey, I'll be a veterinarian, because I loved horses primarily, but animals. And being naive as I was, I found out that veterinary medicine was a 5-year program, and I only had a 4-year scholarship. So I didn't know how I could make it that 5th year. So I picked my second love, which was sports.
And became a coach, went to Belleville Township. Ultimately, the two separated, and you were at Belleville East. 16 years without a losing record. How did you do that with a brand new school to get things started?
I didn't do it. I had a bunch of kids that wanted to, and they were good, and they worked hard, and I was just one of the cogs.
That being said, and you have a staff, and like you said, you do have players, what are you most proud of in your coaching career?
What am I most proud of? Oh my gosh. There's so many I can't count. I have seen kids that I coach become men, and some of them great men. But I think that's my my proudest achievement is watching teenagers grow up and become citizens.
And from that perspective, as citizens, how much did kids change from the time you started coaching them to the time you finished coaching in high school?
I don't think they changed a lot. I really don't. I think good kids don't mind being disciplined, and they learn discipline, and they become disciplined, and they become men and successful at whatever endeavors they start. So, as I said, I was just one of the cogs.
You were also the golf coach. You must have been a really good golfer to teach all those kids how to play golf.
My first job, I went back home to my hometown, West Frankfort, Illinois, deep south coal mine, and they had a golf job open, and so it paid $200. So they told me I could have the golf job. So the first thing I did was buy a set of clubs. Never had a golf club in my hand. Fortunately, I had a player that was runner-up in the state the previous year, and the kid that beat him in the country club championship. So I hooked up with those two, and they taught me the game. And that's how I started playing golf.
That's great. And Coach is living in Indianapolis right now. You have a couple of daughters, right? One still in the area and then one in Indy, is that correct? Your family, your daughters?
I have 2 boys and 2 girls. One daughter is in Indianapolis, where I live now. I'm in an assisted living center over there. And the other daughter lives in Bloomington, Illinois. Her husband is State Farm. I don't know how high he is, but
In Bloomington, pretty high.
he doesn't tell me. But my 2 sons, my older one, Ted, lives alone in West Frankfort. He has never been married, always lived alone. And the baby boy, he's in prison. Well, he's been teaching GED classes at Perryville prison.
Okay. There you go. Getting the GED classes. And so you mentioned Ted. What are the names of your other 3 children? The other 3 children's names? You had Ted, you mentioned your 2 daughters' name and your other son's name.
Ted and Bob, and Jennifer and Stephanie.
All right.
And son-in-law, Michael Skolsky, and Frank Iskra, and that's it.
Good. Congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to induct Dean Renn into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame.
That I didn't like.
Thank you. Thank you.
Back when I was doing those high school broadcasts, I'd show up at Township Stadium in Belleville to broadcast a game once in a while, and Coach Renn was, of course, on the sideline, and I'd walk up to him, young whippersnapper that I was, and ask him for some information about the opponent. Why should I tell you that? So He was a little irascible back in those days. I was a little bit intimidated, more than a little. There are some of us who consider running more than a mile tantamount to climbing Mount Everest or some form of torture, me being one of them. Tonight's next inductee is someone for whom running came naturally, and he has taken it to the highest levels in competition. Stephen Pifer was born into a family of distance runners, so it was natural for him to stand out at Edwardsville High School, win the Triple Crown of Illinois High School Association running, and go on to distance running stardom at the University of Colorado. We did a little research on YouTube and found the final lap of Stephen's run in the Big 12 Championships 1,500 meters race in 2006.
This race a few moments ago was down to around 2 athletes. Now it's right back. You can say that there are 4 athletes still in this race.
And Kyle Mueller in second place. It's one thing that he did in his qualifying heat. He came on strong on the last lap, and Chuli starts to make a move now.
And Stephen Pifer, who has taken the lead from the beginning, is really starting to open up and get a little bit of the lead on the rest of the pack. David Rotich trying to hang in there for second position. And Pifer's Colorado teammate, Anthony Chuli, has now started to make a move. The sophomore from Memphis, Tennessee, is starting to gain a little bit on David Rotich.
But it's Stephen Pifer pulling away. And Pifer wins it. Rotich in second. And another Colorado Buffalo, Chuli in third. Stephen Pifer, the sophomore from Edwardsville, Illinois.
I don't know about you, I'm exhausted just watching that. But that was a Big 12 record-setting run by Stephen. He was an 8-time All-America at CU, 4 in track and 4 in cross country. And there's much more to marvel at in Stephen's bio written by our committee member and Hall of Famer in his own right, Steve Porter, who will conduct this next interview. Ladies and gentlemen, with your applause, please help us welcome Stephen Pifer into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame.
Well, thank you, Tom, and good evening. It's a pleasure to introduce our new Hall of Famer, Stephen Pifer. I'll tell you a story about Stephen. I can tell a lot of stories. But he could run like the wind, and he did it in high school, he did it in college, and he did it beyond. I'm sure he's still doing it today. There was nobody in his era could run like Stephen. Stephen, welcome. It's glad to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Steve. This is an exciting moment for me. You probably conducted one of my first interviews after a high school cross-country meet. Andy Bratton, my teammate, used to run me into the ground, and I think you might have thrown me a little bit of attention. I was so excited. So this is definitely a nice bookend to our conversations together.
Thank you. Stephen, I'm sure there's some family and friends out there you'd like to introduce and recognize tonight.
Yep, absolutely. So I've got my mom and dad here. So, yeah, got to give a big shout out to my mom for putting me in every sport.
Please stand up, please.
Yeah. We've got my stepdad. We got my dad over here, Chris. We've got my younger brother, Jack, who's a runner at St. Louis University. We've got my grandma and grandpa on my dad's side and my grandfather on my mom's side. I've also got Tim Flamer, who was my coach in high school and architected the entire career. And then I've got current Hall of Fame member Craig Virgin, close family friend who's also here with me. So
great to see all of you. Now, since your grandfather was the coach at SIUE and Tim was an All-American, I'm sure they really emphasized the importance of running. And I imagine there's some stories there you could tell us about how they influenced you.
Yeah, for sure. I'll never forget. So I used to see my Uncle Tim always going out for runs, and I really thought, what is he doing? Why is he running all these miles? And he comes back, and he's always exhausted. I sure would like to go out for one of these runs with him. So he let me get on a bike and tag along, and at this point, he was training for the marathon trials. And I'll never forget, I got nervous and there was a car coming, and I forgot to put on the brake, and I ran into the back of his leg, and he stopped me, and it wasn't a great moment for me, and I'm surprised he let me come back out on a run with him again, but that was probably one of my earliest memories with him out running.
And then a great memorable career at Edwardsville High School. And I know you played some other sports there, and I understand you were a pretty good basketball player, but had to, I don't want to say give it up, but decided to concentrate on track and cross country. How good a basketball player were you?
Yeah, I wasn't too bad. So there was a guy named Darius Miles who went to the NBA out of high school, and I got to play against him when I was a freshman at EHS. I dressed varsity, and our coach knew that Darius was going to go to the NBA, so he said, all right, all you guys who have been running a scout team for the varsity, we're going to give you an opportunity to play against a future NBA guy. So I think I maybe could have played for a small Division I college in basketball, but not anything like what I did in track.
I think you made the right call there, Stephen. Also in high school, you won a lot of races. I remember one in particular, before we get to the Triple Crown, where you won the 3,200 meters, which is basically 2 miles, at the Madison County meet. Stephen was so good in that meet, he lapped every other runner, even the second place finisher. Do you remember that, Stephen?
Yeah, I remember that race. That was a tough one.
And then the Triple Crown came, where you won in cross country, you won the state championship, came back in the spring for track, won the 1,600 and 3,200 meters. What did that mean to you, and describe how that all played out? I think you told me the cross country one was the toughest part of it.
Yeah, no, so it's interesting, right? I was chasing a piece of history. I think at that point in time, I was only the 6th athlete in the state of Illinois to win all 3 events. And it's kind of, you got to get a little bit lucky because you got to stay healthy for the entire year. And then, you got to get the tactics right on the day. And it's really tough to get the tactics right because you can't control what your competitors are going to do. So, yeah, it was really special. And, it helps. I've got Craig here. Craig was the last person from Southern Illinois to win that, and I don't think anybody else has, a mentor that's gone on to the heights that he did. So I had some real advantages in having people who had been there and done that could help kind of coach and guide me along the way. But yeah, it was a special day to close it out.
When you won that 3,200 meters, which gave you the Triple Crown, was there a feeling of accomplishment, relief? What were your feelings then?
Yeah, so mostly relief. There was a team race at stake as well. And so we had been 6th place 2 years in a row at state cross country, and I really wanted to bring home a trophy to the school. And so there were some big points on the line, and getting 20 points for the team, winning the 16 and the 3,200 was, it was really important. And so we ended up clinching 3rd place that day, and we brought home a trophy. And I don't know, I probably was the first one in like 50 years for the school. So
I think it was. And winning that helped Stephen get a scholarship to Colorado. He had all kinds of scholarship offers from all over the country. Why did you choose Colorado? And I can imagine running in Boulder, as beautiful that is.
Oh, yeah. So Tim had taken me out there, and I'll say exposure to what the next level of running looked like went so far in my career. So I give my Uncle Tim a ton of credit, and my grandparents for, trucking us all the way out to Utah and to Colorado and seeing different parts of the country that I maybe wouldn't have seen otherwise. But once you get out on Highway 36 and you're going into the valley that's Boulder and you see those Flatiron Mountains, it's like, who would want to run anywhere else? So I knew I was sold at that point.
And what a career there, All-American, both track and cross country, set a lot of records, and eventually won an NCAA championship, and you got to go to the White House, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So we went and we got to meet President Bush, which was an experience in itself. But yeah, I was fortunate to be part of 2 national championship teams. The 04 team was really fun because our number 1 runner on the team decided to turn pro. Another guy got injured. Another guy's dad lost his job. And so Wisconsin was the unanimous number 1 ranked team in the country, and we came in and upset them.
And after that, I think you ran for Nike, and they had the Olympic trials. What was that like?
Yeah, it was pretty amazing, as you would expect. I mean, your job is literally to wake up, go for a run, have some food, take a nap, get a massage, go for another run, and then go to Europe and spend your summers eating good food and racing around the track circuit. So it was terrible.
I can imagine. And then last year, I believe you were inducted into the Edwardsville Athletic Hall of Fame. How meaningful was that for you?
Yeah, that was, I mean, it was obviously, of course, very big for me, but the fact that it was the first or the inaugural relaunching of the Edwardsville High School Hall of Fame, and to be in the first class that was brought back in was just, a cherry on top. And there's been so many incredible athletes that have come through this area and through our high school, and so, yeah, it was a special moment as well.
Now, do you instruct runners, or have you talked to some younger runners about what it means or what it takes to be a good runner, and if so, what have you told them?
Yeah, I try and stay as connected as I can and support kids in the area. The guy who actually broke my school record in the 3,200, Ryan Watts, is now running for Iowa State. Of course, my brother who's running at SLU. So when I can impart some wisdom, I always like to come back and give back to the next generation of runners. But the most important thing is just, one, for me, it's consistency. Two, it's, don't make it about yourself, make it about your team. The stress is, enough of everything else you got going on in life to stress about, running. It's just a sport. So I try and help keep things in perspective for the kids. And then it's just being honest with yourself. If you really want to accomplish something, you've got to be honest with yourself about what needs to be done to accomplish it.
Of all the records you set, which one do you cherish the most?
That's a good question. Probably being the first CU athlete to break the 4-minute mile. That was a pretty cool moment because there were so many Olympians and national champions that have come through the University of Colorado. So to break the 4-minute mile there was pretty nice.
So what's next for Stephen Pifer? What are you doing these days?
So now I live in Atlanta, Georgia with my wife and 3 sons. And I help out coaching their track team. I work for a company called Curex. So, we get to work with a lot of athletes, so I'm still connected to the sporting space. The end of this month, I'll actually be going to California to do a photo shoot with a woman named Lindsay, who's the U.S. Women's National Team captain for soccer. So, still connected to athletics and sports, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Sounds wonderful. Whatever happens to Stephen during the rest of his career, you can be sure of one thing. He will never be running on empty. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome to the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame our newest member, Stephen Pifer.
Perfect. Thanks, Steve. Awesome. Oh, in front of here. Oh, yeah.
Steve Porter there with some of his knowledge from his 70-some years at the Alton Telegraph, right? 85, okay. Actually, he and I were at SIU Edwardsville at the same time, and 1970s, right. Okay. Well, there's a bit of important business we need to take care of before we meet our next Hall of Famer. The St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame is a 501c3 organization that depends on the generosity of individuals and sponsor contributions to be financially viable and be able to keep honoring our sports heroes. Please take note of these businesses and individuals who make what we do possible, and do business with them when you can. The full listing of these folks is in the back of the program. And we definitely couldn't do what we do without the unselfish investment of time and effort by our group of volunteers. Would all of our Hall of Fame team members please stand and be recognized out there for all your good work? I don't know how many man hours and woman hours we put in over the years, but it's considerable, and it's great to be a part of that team. Our next inductee is someone who has made a habit of knocking down barriers and changing attitudes toward what a woman is capable of in the sport of football, or as it's known in America, soccer. That's a shot of Lindsay Eversmeyer when she was starring at Alton High School as Lindsay Kennedy. And the next one is a shot of Lindsay some years later as she suited up for the St. Louis Steamers, as she became the first woman to play in a men's professional soccer match. Lindsay's list of accomplishments, as documented by Ed Wheatley's bio in tonight's program, borders on the unbelievable, really. But it is real. Originally from Maryville, Illinois, still living in the Metro East, coaching the men's team at Southwestern Illinois College, and serving as a game day television analyst for the St. Louis City SC soccer matches, Lindsay continues to make her mark on the game. And she probably could have been doing a little modeling work along the way, too. Not bad, Lindsay. Please review Lindsay's bio in tonight's program to fully appreciate her amazing career. Ladies and gentlemen, with your applause, please welcome into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, Lindsay Eversmeyer. She was told not to dress up, but,
As you sit here in a suit and tie.
well, okay. No tuxedos, I think we said, but we didn't put any.
I don't wear dresses often. I'm in sweatpants and hoodies, so this is my
Well,
one shot.
We
I haven't
appreciate.
dressed up since my wedding.
We appreciate the look. It's great. Well, congratulations.
Thank
What are
you.
your thoughts about being in a Hall of Fame?
I say this over and over again, but I'm very grateful, I'm very honored, but I also feel very guilty because obviously soccer is a team sport, and so I don't just accomplish anything by myself. It's with other people, either my players or my coaches or mentors or my sponsors. So, I mean, I'm very humbled, but I feel really bad because I feel like other people should be up here with me.
Well, you can mention them now if you'd like.
There's too many. I've been coaching too many years. I don't remember what I had for breakfast.
But
let
there's
alone-
some people in the room with
There's
you,
definitely
right?
people in the room. I got my parents, my mom, and my stepdad Bill, my husband Aaron, my kids Caleb and Griffin, and then I got a whole table of Southwestern Illinois college people back there that have given me the opportunity to coach there, which I love, and coach the men's team. It's been great so far. So thank you guys, and my aunt and my uncle's back there too.
I think some of us would be curious about how it is for a woman to coach a men's team. Is that working out for you?
Yeah, it's smelly.
I get that.
The smell's way different. But it's been really great. I think people thought that it would be very challenging.
All of us guys know what she means, right? Yeah, you bet.
I think, a lot of people are very hesitant, but the guys have just been great, and they have been super respectful. And, I had to come in knowing a little bit about the sport, obviously. I couldn't just come in and just say, oh, I'm going to be a woman that coaches your team. I had a resume behind me. I spoke soccer with them. I taught them some things. And then I also let them know that I wasn't just their coach in a way. I also was kind of like a mom. So, which was good for them because, like their team GPA went up higher now. So, because I'm like, you got to go to class or I'm going to be on your butt. So, it's been a great experience. And I'm just very fortunate I have a very good group of guys. So they're great.
At what point did you realize you were something special as a player?
Oh, I don't think I ever realized that.
Oh, come on.
No, I don't think I ever really thought about it. I just think I was like a competitor, and that's the one thing that I focused on every single game. I'm like, I just want to go out and I just want to score goals and I want to help my team, and then you're not successful as an individual, you're successful as a team. So I never really thought about like, oh yeah, I'm the top dog out there. It's a team sport, so.
But you hold all kinds of records that some point you must have said, well, I'm pretty darn good at this.
Well, it's not 1 verse 11 out there, it's 11 verse 11. So someone has to give me the ball, and my goalkeeper has to stop goals. And it's more than my coach has to teach me things that, help me be successful. So I don't know, I'm kind of humble in that part.
Your humility is becoming. Yes, that's very nice.
Not going to get anything like that out of me.
What would you consider your greatest accomplishment then?
Oh man. Well, obviously becoming the first female with the Steamers is great because I think it opened a lot of doors for young girls. So I love that piece of it, that, I saw girls going out and playing with boys and, showing up, and I love that piece. But I think something that I think is a big accomplishment, and it's not even necessarily for me, but I coached a WPSL team. The name is Fire and Ice. I did that for 10 years. They never had a losing record. We won a national championship in 2017. But when I talk to the girls, we don't really talk about when I ask them about their experience, they don't say, oh, the national championship. They said they love the way that the team was ran, and it made it feel like we were all a family. And they still hang out, even though it's done, like they were just playing in a tournament together, and they still are texting me, sending me pictures and say, hey coach, we miss you, So it's those little things and those connections that I've made with my players to help them that I think I'm most proud of.
Obviously, you're still involved in the game, coaching, and you still help out with the St. Louis City SC games. How about that experience with City SC? Was that pretty amazing this past year?
Yeah, that came real fast. It went for me just coming on one time just to be a guest on the show, and they had some movement, and they're like, hey, we just want you to be the analyst for most of the games, and I'm like, I hate talking in front of people. This is the worst job I could ever have in my life. But they're like, it's fine, you're gonna be fine. So like everything I do, I just kind of go against the grain and go against what I'm probably not supposed to do. And I'm like, I'm just gonna do it. And now I love it. I've met some amazing people, and the organization is incredible what they're doing for St. Louis soccer. So I'm very fortunate for that.
So you're still young. What kind of goals do you have at this point, or do you have some?
I do. I'm hoping that we eventually get a women's professional team here. I mean, I think that's something definitely that's going to come in the future. Obviously, we just got the men's team last year, and we have the female ownership over there. So I think,
They're talking about that, right?
Yeah, they're talking about it, but who knows? Everybody wants them to do it this year. It's like they just got the team going this year, so just be patient. But I would love to be a part of that coaching staff. And then I'm also continuing to get my educational licensing through U.S. Soccer, and my next level is a B, and once I get a B, I can become a U.S. national team youth scout, so that I go and travel all over the country and help find our next national team players. So I would love to do something like that as well.
What haven't I asked you that you would like to talk about at this point? You said you love to talk so much in front of people.
I don't know. I think you hit on everything, didn't you? You've done great.
Well, that's
I
really
mean,
up to
you're
you
amazing.
at this point.
So good.
Well,
I think we touched on everything.
Well, I just like to give you the opportunity to ramble if you have such an inclination.
Yeah, I don't know what to really ramble about so much.
You've thanked the family. You've thanked the folks at SWIC.
Yeah.
You talked about St. Louis City SC.
Yeah.
How about the kids?
Kids are great. I mean, I got a 14-year-old who's going into high school next year, and then I have a 24-year-old. Well, he'll be 24 in March. You just always round up. Be 24 in March. So, yeah, they're all good and doing great.
Well, we better wrap it up then.
I'm going to be an empty nester soon.
Hey, everybody, let's welcome Lindsay Eversmeyer to the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame.
Thank you. Wasn't terrible. Oh.
By the way, I mentioned Ed Wheatley wrote the bio and the program for Lindsay, and he was originally scheduled to do Lindsay's interview. Ed, a lot of you know, baseball historian here in the St. Louis area. He's done award-winning documentaries for Channel 9 and such on the St. Louis Browns. And he's a member of our Hall of Fame team. In fact, he was unable to be here because he's down in Florida playing in a senior baseball tournament. And he called me and Tim the other day and said, I was on second base and the pitcher wheeled and threw a pickoff throw and he caught it right in the ear. So he's dealing with some vertigo, and the doctors told him not to get on a plane, so he couldn't be with us tonight, but we wish him all the best. One of our Hall of Fame team members, Ed Wheatley. So a little personal story about our next inductee. I was working, as I mentioned earlier, at the Belleville radio station, WIBV, which in the early days of my career was a full-time station. News, sports, talk, a lot of community-oriented programming and such. I had been there several years and had worked my way up to the program director's position, and one day I receive a phone call from Mike Kelly. And I don't know who Mike Kelly is. I'm, just doing my daily job. He said he was from DuPo, said he was a graduate of SIU Carbondale, and he was interested in doing some play-by-play at our radio station. And I told him, I said, well, we do a lot of sports, Mike, but, you know, we're pretty much, you know, I was doing play-by-play. As I mentioned earlier, Joe May was there. He did a lot of games, and I just didn't think we could give Mike the break that he was looking for, and so I had to thank him and say, gee whiz, we just don't have any room for Mike Kelly right now. Looking back on that, what a mistake holy moly. I had no idea who he was. I wish I could have been a bigger part of his wonderful broadcasting story, because he's gone on, as you well know, to author a great personal story of his own, and I would have loved to have been a part of it, really. Thankfully, Mike's drive, talent, sports knowledge, and as with any success story, I guess a little bit of luck, has created a journey to a great place in his life and career. And he gets to experience the broadcaster's joy of being able to call moments like this.
Out of the hole to Luke Bauer with 3 seconds to play in regulation, tied at 27. Good snap, good place. Kick is up. It is. Yes! Oh, a walk-off winner from 61. Harrison Mevis sends the Mizzou students running onto the turf as Missouri wins it on a 61-yard field goal by Harrison Mevis. The students are...
I think that's when we all realized Mizzou was in for something special this past season. And you see on this slide that Mike was named Sportscaster of the Year by the National Sports Media Association in 2019. Well, that's just one of the 7 times he was named Sportscaster of the Year. Our thanks to Dave Matter for writing Mike's bio in tonight's program, which has more details on his wonderful broadcasting career. Already in the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame, and tonight we are thrilled to honor his signature "To the House" call by saying, Mike Kelly, to the Hall, the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame. Let's welcome him now. And we didn't bring in just anybody to interview Mike tonight. It's Mike's football broadcast partner and 2015 St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame inductee in his own right, former Mizzou and NFL offensive lineman Howard Richards, with us tonight to conduct Mike's interview.
So, a little bit of a role reversal here, huh? How's it feel to be on the other side of the interview?
A little intimidating. Just a couple of years ago, he was inducted into the University of Missouri Intercollegiate Hall of Fame, and I had the honor of interviewing him during his ceremony. This is one of the most intimidating parts of the evening because we know each other too well, and not knowing what's about to come is very, very scary.
I'll go easy on you.
In that regard, Howard, we have a special photo to show, don't we?
We'll get there. We'll
Okay.
get there. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
I'll stay out of it.
By the way, if I can interject just for a second, Tom Calhoun wasn't just a good broadcaster. Tom Calhoun is a great broadcaster. And back in the day, growing up in Dupo, Illinois, yeah, I listened to Jack. Yeah, I listened to Dan. Yeah, I listened to a number of people at KMOX. And they influenced my career. But to be able to listen to high school basketball on WIBV and to listen to Tom Calhoun and the late Joe May broadcast games was something that was very influential in my life. And I just told Tom this, to this day, Magic Johnson played at Michigan State and they were unbeaten 16-0 coming to Assembly Hall. Eddie Johnson knocks down a baseline jumper from the short corner, about 16-footer, to knock off Michigan State, hand them their first loss. And I still, to this day, remember Joe May's call of that game on WIBV. So, Tom, thank you for all you've done for Metro East and certainly for your work with the St. Louis Blues. And we worked together for a short time at KMOX, and he will always mean more than he knows to me.
Amen to that. So, before we get started, who's here with you tonight from the Kelly family?
So I have my wife, Lori. We've been married for 35 years, soon going to be 36. I have my two sisters, Robin Conway, her husband, Keith, Kim Diesel. I have my nephew, Kelly Diesel, and my nephew, Brian Conway, and his wife, Ashley. They are expecting their first baby boy.
Very nice.
But also, I have with me my family from One Digital in St. Louis. We are a commercial insurance firm, the 16th largest independently held insurance firm in the United States. If you have a broker you don't like, please see me afterwards. We'll be happy to talk to you. But Lauren Wims, Dennis Bell, Jim Ringland, Brooks Ford, the whole gang. And then my Mizzou Sports Properties folks, led by Josh Pell, our terrific general manager, our partner, Chris Gervino, who I've been blessed to know for more than 30 years. And then his staff with Steve Sowers, Gary Northern, and Ryan. What's going on over there, buddy? Good to see you.
Stand up, guys, please. Mike's family,
Ryan
stand
Corbin.
up, please. Thank you all. So, Mr. Kelly, 33 years Mizzou basketball, 30 years Mizzou football. That is an impressive run. How'd you do it?
I've been very blessed, very lucky. People won't remember this, but in 1991, I had done color on Missouri basketball with Tom Dorr, who at the end of the 1990-91 season decided to take a job doing TV with a team called the Bulls. Went on to win 6 NBA titles, and he got 6 rings. But at that point in time, Joe Castiglione, who's now the athletic director at the University of Oklahoma, asked me if I would want to do play-by-play for Mizzou basketball. And what people won't remember is that my first color analyst was a guy named Joe Buck. And his father, and I will always call him Mr. Buck because of the reverence that I had for Jack, Mr. Buck used to say before we started doing games that year, "When are you two fledglings going to begin your careers?" One of us is still fledgling. The other guy's had a pretty good career along the way. So I've been very blessed, just very lucky. And then, Bill Wilkerson decided he was going to do the Phoenix Cardinals. And so in 1994, they offered me the opportunity to do Mizzou football. And by the grace of God, I haven't missed a game since the start of the 1994 season.
That's impressive. So other than the late, great Jack Buck and Joe, and of course, our good friend Bill Wilkerson, are there any others in the industry that you've looked up to, or those that you may have even wanted to emulate as a young pup?
I think Dewayne, and congratulations to him. I mean, he's somebody that I forgot he had gone to Tampa. I mean, that's old age setting in. But when he was with the Cubs, and I did PA at Busch Stadium for a couple of seasons, got a chance to meet him when I was working at KMOX full time. But there's a number of people I think that as broadcasters, you listen to throughout the year and throughout the years, and maybe you try to blend a little bit of them, but I think it's also important that you develop your own style, and that's what I've tried to do. Kevin Harlan is someone that's been very, very, kind to me throughout my time doing Missouri. Having the opportunity growing up and listening to Jack and to Dan Kelly and to Bob Costas, and people forget about the great Bob Starr and what a terrific broadcaster he was. My friend Randy Carricker and I, were at KMOX for many years together, and he's always been a great friend and a great sounding board. And so I just think there's a variety of different people that you listen to, throughout your career, and maybe you try to blend in a little bit about what they've done with what you're doing.
Yeah. Give the audience a couple of your favorite plays from all your years of doing either Mizzou football, basketball, or both. A couple of your favorite plays that you've enjoyed calling.
Beating Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl this year was pretty fun. That was a memorable moment that I think Missouri fans will remember for a long time. And you and I and Chris have talked about this. I think it's Missouri's biggest win in a bowl game since 1968 when they beat Alabama in the Gator Bowl. And the reason why I say that is because Missouri doesn't get the opportunity to play national brands in settings like that. the Gator Bowler and the Cotton Bowl against Ohio State. And so to win that game on that stage and on that platform before an audience like that, I think will go a long way. I really think we're at the start of something pretty special at Mizzou with the football program. But I've always considered our roles, right? Like we're describing action, but we're also watching kids play a game, right? And it's about kids making plays. And so to answer your question in that regard, there are several, the triple overtime game against Illinois back in December of 1993 at the old, arena on Oakland Avenue. Shane Ray's scoop and score against Oklahoma State in the Cotton Bowl will be something that I'll always remember. But then there's also the other team, right? Because it's about kids making plays. Tyus Edney's run to the basket in 1995 with 4.8 seconds to go to allow UCLA to remain unbeaten and advance. They had lost a game, but to be able to remain as the number one team in the nation, survive and advance as they talk about the tournament, and eventually win a national championship. A kid making a play in that moment is just something that you're happy that you were a witness to. I did the NCAA tournament for CBS Radio for a couple of years, and I had a chance to call Bryce Drew's game winner in Oklahoma City against Ole Miss back in the 90s, and that's something that I'll remember as well. Getting to do the Rams in the NFC Championship game against Tampa Bay on CBS Radio was something that was a memorable day for me too.
If you had not been blessed to be able to broadcast Mizzou football, Mizzou basketball, and removing yourself from the insurance industry, what other profession might you have pursued?
I wanted to be an attorney when I was in high school, but then I realized I wasn't very smart. And that wasn't something that I was going to follow through on. Yeah. I don't know. And Frank was kind enough to ask me the question earlier, when did you know that you were going to make a career of this? And I liken broadcasting to, kind of like Broadway, which is an aspiring goal for my youngest daughter, or for the NFL draft, is that you need one person to like you. And in broadcasting, you need one person to like how you sound. And I don't know that we individually have ears that enjoy the way we sound. And so I was blessed, when I was in school at SIU to get a chance to work for a guy named Mike Reese, who is an absolute mentor, and I love the guy. He's somebody that he checked in before the evening. I went to the University of Illinois and worked at WDWS in Champaign for several years and worked for a guy named Jim Turpin, who was a terrific mentor. And he gave me the opportunity at a very young age to do play-by-play, to do morning and afternoon drive sports, but then also to be able to do a talk show as well, which helped kind of lay the groundwork to having the opportunity to come to KMOX. And, I was hired by Robert Hyland in 1988. I had auditioned for the job. The football Cardinals were leaving St. Louis, and there were a couple of positions in the sports department that were going to open up. Nancy Drew was leaving. Bob Mayhall was leaving. And I got a phone call because I had done some work for KMOX while I was in Champaign. Would you like to audition? And so I came down and I auditioned on a weekend, I think in April, and I'll never forget Jim Holder, who's been a dear friend and who I just love. I reached out to Jim and I said, how do I get this job? And he said, you got to get to Highland. I said, okay. How do you get to Robert Hyland? He said, 314-444-3201. But understand this, if you don't get to him before 6 a.m., you will not talk to him the rest of the day. Mr. Hyland, as you might remember, was a very devout Catholic, was a workaholic. Bob Green from the Chicago Tribune wrote a great story back in the day about the classic workaholic of Robert Hyland. He would literally get to the office at 11 p.m. And he was so involved in the community that he would do a lot of his civic duties between 11 p.m. and Mass at the old cathedral at 6 a.m. And so I formulated a plan that every Friday morning at 4:30, beginning in late April and continuing until late July, I would call 314-444-3201. And the conversations early on went like this. Robert Hyland, Mr. Highland, Mike Kelly calling from Champaign. I just want you to know how much I want to work in the sports department. We're still looking. Click. Next Friday, same conversation. Mr. Highland, yeah, we haven't made a decision. Click. I mean, he was always very cordial, but it was always very brief. And finally, in about early June, on a Friday, I called, and he picked up the phone at 4:30, and he said, Michael, how are you? And I thought to myself, okay, we're getting somewhere, we have a chance. And so, and then at that point in time, that was a career goal, is I wanted to work at KMOX because I'd grown up as a kid going to, practice, and my dad in his old GMC pickup truck, either the dark gray one or the red one would pick me up from practice as a kid, and he'd always have on KMOX. And so that was the seed that was kind of planted.
That's fantastic. So one thing that I know about you that people in the audience may not know about you is that you're very competitive. You're highly competitive. A little bit of a jokester, right, Chris? You're pretty good play-by-play announcer. I'll give you that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here right now. Decent golfer.
Here we go.
Never played. But the one thing, I'm going to set this record straight right now. If I were pass blocking, and you were trying to
You
rush
could
the
not block
basket,
me. There's no way.
You could not get past me. And if you don't believe me, ask Lori Kelly. We almost tore up her basement one time. There might have been a few adult beverages involved as well. But the one thing, I will say this, the one thing that you are absolutely better than me at, and one thing that I always wanted to do and couldn't, was grow a big afro. You maybe for a white guy too, one of the best afros ever. Do we have a picture of Mike Kelly in his afro someplace?
Where did you get that?
I used to work for CIA.
So far left side, Lindsay, it says BAC, for those that remember. There was a crazy coach that I played for named Jay Harrington back in the day. Wow. The hair, not Jay, of course.
I think we've left Mike Kelly speechless, almost.
It was the 80s, and it kind of just rolled,
Thank you, my friend.
Next slide.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Michael Patrick Kelly. My brother, congratulations and welcome to the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame.
I love you. Thank you.
Yeah, that crazy Jay Harrington guy, we put him in the Hall of Fame here a year ago. So, yeah. Still coaching, yep, still going strong. We now want to recognize and thank our reception sponsor for tonight's event, One Digital, a steward of business growth and people potential. The company helps businesses and individuals achieve their aspirations of health, success, and financial security. Receiving the sponsor plaque on behalf of One Digital is Lauren Wims, Senior Client Executive, Hall of Fame Assistant Director Wes Edwards, on stage to present. Thank you, fellas. Congratulations, Mike. Thank you, Howard. Well, our next honoree will be honored posthumously. And we always hope when we do so that the person's spirit, in this case, former Detroit Tigers pitcher Les Mueller, is somehow aware of our recognition. Mr. Mueller lived to the age of 93 when he passed in 2012, but he still holds an amazing Major League Baseball record that is unlikely to be ever equaled. Imagine in today's professional baseball, folks, a pitcher, his manager, and his agent being happy about allowing that pitcher to be on the mound for 19 2/3 innings of a game. It just wouldn't happen, right? But that's what Les Mueller did in the 1945 season in an extra innings game against the Philadelphia Athletics. throwing north of 250 pitches on that day. And when the manager finally came out to bring in a reliever, he said, "The game's not over yet," and didn't want to come out. He pitched for the Tigers in the '45 World Series against the Cubs and earned a championship ring. Like many players of the time, his prime years were interrupted by serving in the armed forces in World War II. So he deserves to be honored for his service to the country as well. Please read more about Les and his baseball exploits in tonight's program. After baseball, he returned to Belleville to help run the family furniture business, which has been run by the Millers now through 4 generations. He was also a prominent Belleville leader as an alderman and founding member of the organization that established Citizens Park in Belleville, where local baseball continues to thrive. The Miller family, including Les's sons Linwood and Roger, are here with us tonight. Their cousin Gary, who you remember as a sports writer for the Post-Dispatch, is also with us. Your applause, please, for Les Miller as we welcome him into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame. And Les's grandson, that is, Mark Miller, will be the family spokesperson tonight, and Randy Carricker is back for the interview. Randy?
Thank you, Tom. I wonder how many Cardinal pitchers in 3 consecutive games last year went 19 2/3. Probably not many. Maybe it might have happened once. So that's a pretty remarkable stat. Mark, let's start with this. Tom mentioned this, your uncles and the other people that are here. Who from the family is here?
Yeah, so Grandpa Les, 2 of his 3 sons, my uncle Roger and his wife Betty Miller are here, and my dad Linwood and my mom Christine, and then their first cousin Gary and Gary's wife Bonnie, and of course my beautiful wife Viviana is there as well. Hi.
You mentioned to me earlier that your grandfather was very inspirational for you. How?
Oh, I mean, he's my baseball hero. And so I'm at this point in my life, I'm the oldest pitcher in the Montclair League, and it's just a love I have for the game that I can't give up. Summer of 1993, him and my dad took me to the Smithton Legion Field, taught me how to pitch, and 31 years later, I still love doing it.
That's fantastic. He's still pitching. How about a round of applause for that? How did it start in baseball for Grandpa Les?
Well, baseball wasn't exactly something his father, wanted him to do. Baseball was a ruffian's game, I guess, back then. And luckily, he had an older brother, Roland, who kind of helped get him signed. I just found this out today. I mean, here I am learning stories about Grandpa, which is amazing. So, under the guise of going to pick up furniture in some warehouse in St. Louis, Roland, his older brother, and Grandpa, they would go and he'd go work out for teams at Sportsman Park. So the Indians would be in town. He'd go throw for the Indians, Tigers. And he must have pitched really well for all of them because they were all trying to sign him out of high school.
And his last couple of high school starts were difference makers, right?
He struck out, so Grandpa Les struck out 30 batters in one game. 30 in a 13-inning game. And then the next game, a 7-inning, he struck out 17. So 47 in two games. And everybody was thinking, it could be the next Bob Feller or something, just a phenom at that age.
And so the Tigers come calling. What prompted him to sign with them?
Well, there's a lot of different stories about how Grandpa got signed. I just heard one that he graduated high school, and as he stepped off the stage, the scout ran over there with a piece of paper and said, "Here, sign this. This is your contract." And he thought he was signing with Cleveland, maybe, but it turns out it was Detroit.
So he gets to the minor leagues, gets to the majors very quickly, and makes his major league debut at Yankee Stadium, correct?
No, in 41, makes his debut, and he wrote on a wood post in our warehouse, this is in 1938, to Detroit by 41, and he did it. He made it at the age of 22. And
then what happened in the first game that he pitched?
Yeah, so his first start at Yankee Stadium, he throws a 2-hit shutout, and Grandpa had a funny way of gripping the ball. He tucked his thumb under the ball. And so he had a natural cut fastball, but they didn't even know what to call it. It was a fastball that moved into left-handers. And he told me, he said, I remember Yankees had all those good left-handed hitters, and I kept throwing them underneath their hands. And that's just how they try to pitch guys in the big leagues now all the time.
And Mariano Rivera went to the Hall of Fame throwing that pitch to every single hitter he faced, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So Grandpa was unconventional in that he threw right to right-handers sidearm and overhand to left-handers, and that was just kind of how he did it.
How much did he talk to you about the game where he threw 19 2/3?
Yeah, I mean, it was like he grinded through the first 10 innings. He was pitching in and out of jams. There was a runner thrown out. Doc Kramer threw out a guy at home plate to keep it a 1-1 game. He gave up one unearned run. And then he must have just hit the zone. You know, athletes talk about getting in the zone. From the 11th through the 18th, he faced the minimum number of hitters. Only 2 base runners got on. He got double plays both times. So he got in a zone. And anybody that's played any sport, could you imagine just being on that mound in that kind of control? That's amazing.
And as Tom mentioned, the manager comes out to get him. He said, "But the game's not over." Did he kind of relate that to life, though? Did the job have to be done for your grandfather?
Yeah, Grandpa was just the best. You know, he had this warm personality. I mean, he was a kind soul. Anybody that saw him, he had a kind face to him, and he, just nobody ever had a bad word to say about Grandpa.
And what did he do in World War II? He came back from World War II and pitched. We'll talk about that in a second. But what was his job in World War II?
He was at Jefferson Barracks, in the National Guard, I believe.
And then when he comes back, he's gotten off to this great start with the Tigers and came back and actually pitched well, coming right out of 3 years away, right?
Yeah, I mean, to even think about it, to be able to make a major league team after basically 3 years off, I mean, it was incredible to even make the team. And he had some ups and some downs, and then he had some bad luck that year. I mean, 19 2/3 innings, and you get a no decision. I mean, come on. The next game, he was in the 9th inning with a lead. And so God knows how many pitches he had thrown in those 2 games, and they didn't pull him and bring in a closer or something. He had a 4-2 lead, and I think he lost the game 5-4. So he pitched, all these innings, gave up very little runs, and had an 0-1 record to show for it. So it was tough sledding in 45.
And then you were telling me a story that obviously the Cubs did go to the World Series and win it in 2016, but there's a statistic about your grandpa in regards to the Cubs in the World Series.
Yeah, so he was, at the time of his death, he was the last living pitcher to pitch against the Cubs in a World Series. So I'd always point that out to my Cubs friends.
Yeah, and then the Cubs had to go and ruin it. And finally, we talk in sports, we use the word hero a lot. I know that from your perspective, personally, he was a heroic figure, but overall, it seems like Les Mueller was a very heroic figure.
Absolutely, and he kind of represents all the ball players that maybe lost their careers to the war. I mean, he got lucky enough to make the teams, but there's a lot of guys that they went off to the service and didn't come back, or couldn't come out and live their dreams in sports. So, to be able to make it and win a World Series and do some amazing things on the ball field, it's something to be really, really proud of.
It sure is, and we can tell how proud you and your family are of your grandfather. Ladies and gentlemen, enshrined tonight into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, Les Mueller, represented by his grandson, Mark.
I've had the pleasure of being around the Mueller folks for a while, and I think they're all pretty strong individuals and great citizens of our area. Well, you'll notice in tonight's program that our next inductee is listed as a contributor. Well, that's because John Simmons has been a player, owner, administrator, and someone who has shown he cares deeply about sports in our region as a prolific financial supporter of sports in the area for many years. Mr. Simmons and wife Jane have been owners of 2 minor league baseball teams, the former Southern Illinois Miners based in Marion and, the Savannah, Georgia Sand Gnats. a Class A affiliate of the Washington Nationals. Yeah, Sand Gnats. We all know about those, right? They have since given up those ownerships, but enhanced those franchises greatly while in their ownership position. More locally, Mr. Simmons, a former athlete at Roxana High School, has been a valuable booster to the sports climate at his alma mater, and mine as well, Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville. With the resounding success of his law firm, John has had the wherewithal to support the upgrades and expansion of Roy E. Lee Field at the Simmons Baseball Complex on the SIUE campus. That's John throwing out a first pitch, and more on Roy Lee coming up in a little bit. John's been involved in and supported many civic projects in the metro area and also serves on the SIU Board of Trustees and has been chairman of that body. And perhaps we can get Mr. Simmons to tell the story of how he was denied admission to SIUE when he first applied, believe it or not. True story. At least I thought I saw that on YouTube somewhere. Please read the full background piece on Mr. Simmons in tonight's program. In short, there is no better contributor to sports in this area than John Simmons. Let's welcome him with our applause to the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame. Steve Porter's back for the chat.
Well, hello again. Now, one thing I want to ask, are we having a good time? Is everybody having a good time now? Okay. Just want to make sure, because it doesn't get any better than our next Hall of Famer. Most of you know John Simmons is one of the finest lawyers in the country, and his law firm is one of the finest in the nation. But we're not here to talk about lawyering tonight. We're here to talk about sports. And John has been an ardent supporter of sports, a contributor, and he has a deep love of sports and a passionate view of things in the athletic world. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Steve.
John, I'm sure you have some friends and family out there you may want to acknowledge at this point.
Yes, I have 3 of my 4 boys here.
Please
Jesse,
stand up.
Nick, and Taylor.
Great to see you.
And a bunch of my SIU family. Thank you. President Mahoney, Chancellor Minor, thank you for being here. And a table full of friends, Al Womack, Alton Boys and Girls Club, and Roger Lewis, and we'll hear from you, Dewayne, later.
Thank you for all coming. Now, John went to Roxana High, and there he met his wife, Jane. And John participated in some sports at Roxana High School. You may not know that, but John's going to tell you a story about when he played for the Shells.
Yes, I've got a few of those. So I fancied myself a wrestler in school, but really the thing I can tell you most about my wrestling career is how many lights exist in all of the high school gyms in the Mississippi Valley Conference. But that didn't end my career. I dislocated a kneecap, and the doctor said no more wrestling. But I could play basketball. I had never played basketball.
I think there's a good story coming about basketball you might want to tell.
There is, and it goes to coaching and how important coaches are. So my sophomore year of high school, I went out for basketball for the first time ever. And, of course, I didn't make the JV team. I barely made the sophomore team, and the only reason I made that team was because they wouldn't cut anyone. So I wasn't going to play at all, so I just practiced really, really hard, and I would frustrate my teammates. They would say, "Calm down, that's just this is practice." I'm like, "This is my game. I don't get to play." So one time our coach had a wedding or a funeral. He missed the game at Marquette. And we had a coach that filled in, and we were losing real bad to Marquette. And the coach says, "Hey," he looks down the bench, and I sat at the far end of the bench because I know I'm the least relevant player on the team, so I'm just trying to remove myself from any distractions from the team. And he said, "Who hasn't played much this year?" And so everybody on the team just points like this, and except to me at the end, I raised my hand, and he looks down and he says, Simmons, you haven't played much? I said, no, I haven't played at all, Coach. He said, how much have you played? I said, I haven't played at all. He goes, you haven't played any? I said, no, I don't play. And he's like, well, get in the game. Well, I ran onto the court because I'm going to get to play. And I didn't realize you had to check in with the scorer's table. So I'm just like, Smith, you're out, I'm in, you know. So we got in trouble, a penalty or something for that. And then later on, he realizes what's going on because I'm trying really, really hard. And it's obvious to like everybody that I'm giving it 100%. I think I had like 3 fouls in 20 seconds or something like that. And so anyway, he says, okay, he called the timeout. We all ran over there and looking at the coach, and he says, okay, no one shoots the ball but Simmons. So I wound up with like 20 points that game, and I didn't even want to shoot. I was passing it. Everybody kept passing the ball to me, and like, you got to shoot it. We can't shoot. So I started chucking them up from everywhere, and some of them went in.
That's a great story, John. What happened in basketball after that?
That was pretty much the
That was
highlight
it,
of my
okay.
career, yeah. The coach came back, and I set the bench.
But there was some track and cross country, I believe, and football still for you.
Yeah,
at
I played for
Roxanne.
Charlie Rach. He was a tremendous coach, and got to play with him, and had a great story there. We had a guy, he wound up playing on the practice squads for Dallas, Kansas City, and one other professional team. I don't remember what, but he played receiver, and this was at a time when no one really passed the ball much. And he got shook up on a game, and so they said, Simmons, you're in. I was his backup. So I go into the game, and I'm backing up this really good player, and we get in the huddle, and the quarterback calls the play, and it's a passing route. So there's like 3 different outlets the quarterback can pass to, and I thought, wow, that was a pass. I'm running to my position after we broke from the huddle, and I'm thinking, he called that pass play, but it's not going to go to me. I mean, he's got other options, I'm sure. So I ran my route, and he's breaking and rolling out and running right at me, and he throws the ball to me. I couldn't believe it. You know, I caught the ball. So now whenever we go to class reunions, I talk about, let's don't talk about all the touchdowns and the number of yards, but who's got the highest receiving percentage?
There you go. Yeah. John, after Roxana, you went in the military and then to SIUE, and I think you maybe developed a great love for baseball at that point. You told me how much it meant to you.
Yep, I played baseball in high school in 9th grade, but then started track, and then wound up going to the Savannah Sandnets. At the time, they were the Savannah Cardinals, Class A affiliate in Savannah, which is where I was stationed in the military, and you could go to the games for $1. So my wife and I would go to these baseball games for $1. It was great. It was great baseball, and Todd Zeal, I saw him hit 4 home runs in one game as a Savannah Sandnet, and I just remember the announcer saying, Todd Zeal, ladies and gentlemen, remember that name, you'll hear it later, or something like that, and I did.
So if you follow what John did, if you can go to a game for $1, eventually you may own that team, because that's what he did. He owned the Savannah team.
It did happen. It was kind of surreal, but yes, it happened.
Okay. And at SIU, of course, the baseball complex is named for you at Roy Ely Field. What does that mean to you?
Oh, that's kind of special. I was friends with the athletic director. He went to Roxana as well. His name was Nick Adams. He's coaching the Olympic BMX team at this point in Colorado Springs, but he was talking about the improvements they wanted to make to the field and everything, and he's the one that kind of got me to do that. So.
Okay. And then owning 2 teams, the Southern Illinois Miners of Marion and the Savannah Sandnets, what was that like?
That was great. The difference of the two were night and day. When the affiliated team that we owned in Savannah, you had 0 control over really anything. You might get a weigh in on whether or not it's a rain out or not, but maybe even not. And if the pitcher's doing terrible and you need to pull him, or, they don't want your input. You sell hot dogs and beer, but in the Frontier League and the Independent League baseball, you kind of can have some say. It's night and day. Frontier League was much better as an owner.
So what's next for John Simmons? I'm sure some sports might be involved in it.
Oh, well, we'll still sponsor the Harry Gallatin basketball tournament and things like this, and I like to be involved and just hear the great stories we've heard tonight and some that are coming, I'm sure, so.
Well, whatever John Simmons continues to do in sports, we'll be very successful at it. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome to the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame a new inductee, John Simmons.
Thank you, Steve.
And we now want to recognize and thank our presenting sponsor for tonight's event. You've seen their logo on the screen all evening. Simmons Hanley Conroy is committed to their clients and their right to a voice in the legal system, and have helped thousands of clients across the country harmed by corporate wrongdoing and recovered billions of dollars in verdicts and settlements on their behalf. Joining us now to receive the presenting sponsor plaque is Mr. Perry Browder of Simmons Hanley Conroy, and presenting is 2018 St. Louis Sports Hall of Famer and our committee member, the great softball coach Rita Menke. Before we talk a little hockey in our next segment, I always like to give a quick update on our friend who came to support me in 2020 when I was honored with enshrinement in this Hall of Fame, Layla Anderson. You remember Layla as the inspirational young girl who was a part of that magical run to the Stanley Cup the Blues had in 2019. She had, shortly before that, undergone a bone marrow transplant, and there was hope for a healthy future, but it was just, at that time, hope. Well, I'm happy to report that Layla just had what they call her 5th rebirth day. It's 5 years now since her transplant. And as you can see, she's growing into a beautiful and healthy young lady, and she continues to advocate for the National Marrow Donor Program, formerly Be the Match. More on that at nmdp.org. So I'm so happy for Layla and her family and that big trophy she helped us win in 2019. One of Layla's close friends and friend of the hall, Kelly Highland, provided the customized cookies for tonight's inductees on their tables. Fleur de Lis Cookies is her business. Well, as we all know, the sport of ice hockey has grown exponentially in the St. Louis area over the last few decades. Our next honorees have witnessed and been a significant part of that growth in their family since the beginning. That's the late Roy Weaver. Our friend left us in 2009, but was the hard-to-not-like gentleman who gave the hockey bug to his entire family. Roy played the game for many years. He started the Learn to Play program at what was then the new Granite City Ice Rink, and he co-founded the Hockey Association in Granite City as well. He was a longtime member of the NHL off-ice officials crew that worked Blues games, and his dedication to the sport landed him posthumously in the St. Louis Amateur Hockey Hall of Fame in 2011. And he sat next to yours truly. Yes, that's me with the used car salesman mustache back at the old arena in 1987 when I got started working those games. Yikes. Whew. Don't remember that guy. Sons Larry, Lon, and Tim have all been players and NHL off-ice officials as well. Larry was also commissioner of Missouri amateur hockey for a time. Roy's grandson and Larry's son, Nathan, has also played the sport and is now the third-generation Weaver to serve the NHL as an off-ice official. Please read the full Weaver amazing dedication to hockey story in tonight's program. With your applause, please welcome hockey's Weaver family into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame. This is Larry, that's Lon, that's Tim, and that's Nathan over there. And it will be my pleasure to chat with my friends here tonight. Larry, I'm going to go over this way. Tell us about your dad. He was just a great guy.
Yeah, he was. He never met anybody he didn't like. He especially got along with the tough guys in the league.
Yeah, I was going to say, Bob Probert, who many of you remember as the toughest guy in the league back in the day, he would come occasionally and sit in the penalty box, and that's where I used to work back in those days. And if Roy didn't come out with a joke within the first 30 seconds he was in there, Probert would say, "What, no joke tonight?" And Roy would come up with some.
Yeah, if he didn't catch him in the penalty box, we'd be waiting by the locker room for him after the game.
Well, Larry, your experience with your dad is a great one. I'm going to come back and talk to Lon. You got a Roy story or two, I'm sure.
Oh, I have a lot of them. He told a joke a lot better than you did. So.
You told a joke better than me. Thank you, pal.
No, one of the stories I remember, well, what Larry was touched on, you touched on, is his rapport with the bad guys and in the box and also in the locker room. One night, I guess Dad was about 80 maybe at the time. One of the tough guys, Joe Koser, came into the box. And he was looking around and seeing who he could see. He's always in the box in St. Louis. But he took a look down the ways, down the desk there, saw you, and then he saw my dad, Roy, and said, "Damn, Roy, are you still alive?" Yeah, he got along with everybody, even back in the days, the old barn with Ron Flockhart. He taught him how to tie his tie.
How good a player was he?
He was a real good player. He played left wing all the time. He didn't score a whole lot, but he scored his share. But he was a great father, of course, but good role model, and I learned a lot about hockey from him.
Let me talk to Tim here for a minute. How did you think he translated or passed along the hockey bug to all you guys?
Well, he was just a great ambassador for the game of hockey, amateur hockey, and to the NHL. I remember when I was a kid, my dad received 2 tickets from a client to go to a St. Louis Hawks game of the NBA. He sold the tickets. We went to the St. Louis Braves game, the minor league team of the Blackhawks at the time. And that's where my love of hockey began.
Yeah. So, he started that program at Granite City. How many kids do you think have gone through that program over time? Any wild guesses?
Oh, I know this guy here, all of us, I went through it. There's probably thousands of kids. Yeah. It's really growing over there.
All right, let me talk to Nathan for a minute. So you're one of the products of that program, but you played some pretty serious hockey in your day.
Yeah, a little bit. Just some
St. Louis U club hockey, right?
Yeah, St. Louis U club hockey, Division I club. Yeah.
So, Grandpa, tell us about him in your mind.
He was just. He loved his grandchildren. He was dedicated. He was always there. We could be playing hockey in Springfield, and him and my grandmother would show up on their motorcycle to come watch us play, and then they'd drive back down to South County and see the cousins play soccer or golf, and come back over to Granite City and for a swim or dive meet. And he was just very dedicated to his grandkids.
Remember any of his corny jokes?
No.
I wouldn't ask you to do that. No, most of them you couldn't tell in private or a public company anyway. So Larry, you've got these guys here behind you and a great legacy of your family. What does this Hall of Fame honor mean to you and the bunch?
Well, it's very, very grateful. We're very, very grateful for this honor. It's we all played the game and worked at the game because we loved it and didn't really expect anything out of it. But it's really nice to know that people do appreciate you.
Yeah, and Nathan, back to you for a second. You guys all work these NHL games. What keeps you coming back? Besides me.
You. It's you. Yeah. No, the camaraderie. We've got a great group of guys that we work with. Everybody's, nice and friendly, and we all get along. And we've got a table back there of guys from our crew, and it's just it's a great sport to watch. And
I said at the beginning of my piece there that hockey has come a long way over the last several decades, and you guys have all been around to see it. It's great to see some of the St. Louis kids now making an impact in professional hockey.
Absolutely. And
I play against any of those guys?
I played against some of the pro players. Yeah, some of the guys that were in the NHL when I was growing up. But Darian Hatcher, Nick Nemenko, a couple other guys that played in the NHL. Yep.
But it's great to see that the young people and dedication that you guys have had and many others toward the sport have helped young people now from St. Louis make an impact in pro hockey. Ladies and gentlemen, the tremendously dedicated to hockey Weaver family, the new induction into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame. Let's hear it for them. You want to do it? Go ahead. Our next inductee will be another person we wish could be here to enjoy it. Roy Lee passed in 1985, but not until he put together a very Hall of Fame-worthy baseball career. I recall several memorable bus rides to SIUE road games when Lefty would regale us with stories of his days in the Red Sox organization and other noteworthy stops in his pitching career. Just a great guy who I wish I would have been good enough to play for. I'm glad I got to spend a little time around him as a young broadcaster of SIUE games, and I know Dewayne feels the same way. He was the first Cougars baseball coach hired in '68 after he racked up 125 wins at St. Louis U and earned entry into the Billikens Hall of Fame. Roy's Cougars teams were always outstanding. 3 appearances in the NCAA Division II World Series verifies that. I was fortunate to be one of the broadcasters at the '72 finals played up the road in Springfield, Illinois. The late Champ Summers was on that team and had a memorable dive into the hotel pool from the second floor balcony, as I recall. And Lefty was none too happy about one of his star players doing that swan dive the night before the big game. But I think we'll all remember that one, any of us who were close by. Much more about Roy's career accomplishments in tonight's program, and it's time to hear more in the interview of his son and Commissioner Emeritus of the Frontier League and a valuable member of our Hall of Fame committee, Bill Lee. Please welcome to the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, with your applause, Roy Lefty Lee. And appropriately, we have Mr. KMOX pre- and post-game show, Cardinals Network voice, SIUE Director of Athletics Communication and Broadcasting, Mr. Joe Pott, here to do the interview. Joe.
Thank you, Tom. We've done this a time or two.
We've done a few of these.
We have sat on the other side of a microphone from one another. It's a pleasure to welcome your dad into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, and I feel fortunate to be able to share this and to do this with you. Tell me about who's here tonight and what it means that some 45 years after Dad was coach, that there's some former players out there tonight.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm just really blessed to have everybody here. I'm also blessed to, our family is blessed to have my dad be recognized, even though he passed away in 1985. And there's a lot of guys here. I know I'm going to go with my family probably last year, but there's a guy back here named Harlan Scheibel that played for my dad in 1957. And I was a bat boy for those teams. And one of his good friends, Rich Soje, that I've known since I was 5. And but with my family, I got love my life Debbie here, my brother John, his wife Evelyn, my cousin Steve, his wife Anna, Debbie's son and daughter Ryan and Michelle, and Suzanne, and our granddaughter Riley sitting back there, and we've got great friends. But I also really, pardon me for going a little long here on this one, but I want to thank all the folks from SIU. I really, really appreciate everything that you guys have done for this particular event, but also for our family and our community with everything that's going on. I want to thank John Simmons too, especially, and he knows why. But the other guys I really want to recognize are sitting right back here at the table. I believe it's, what is that, 10? And it's all the other players, a bunch of guys that I played with at SIU. But 2 guys I do want to have stand up. First, the coach that followed my dad that got 1,000 wins at SIU, and one of these days is going to be in this Hall of Fame, Gary Bo Collins. Stand up, Bo. And current head coach, Sean Lyons. Coach?
You were a player for Dad at SIUE.
Yes. I was on the teams, let's put it that way. There was, one year I played, the other years was pretty bad.
So what was it like for you, and what was Dad like as a coach?
I went away my freshman year because I didn't want to play for him. You know, I didn't want that, and I want to try and stand on my own. But then when I was playing away, I found out, you know what, he's a pretty good coach. So I transferred back and came back, and it wasn't easy. I mean, some of my old roommate Stan Osterbrough there will know some of the things that went on behind the scenes with my dad and I. But it was tough for the first couple of years I played there. And then our senior year, when we went to the College World Series, finished second in the World Series. And I had a pretty good season that year, and I had a pretty good World Series, and everything kind of changed at that point. But if you don't mind me yakking again here, probably the most memorable time that I had was in that College World Series. And we had a chance to play for the national title. We'd gotten beat the first game. We had to get beat twice. We got beat the first game 6-5 by Cal Poly Pomona. And then the last game, we were down 3-1 in the 7th inning. It was, then when we came up to hit in the 9th inning, it was 17-1. And a guy got a walk in front of me, and I was coming up with 2 outs, and my dad calls me down to third base. And he put his arm around me, and he said, "Go out with a bang." So I walked back down to home plate, and I hit a slider that looked like it was about the size of a basketball when I hit it at Springfield, and it went out of the ballpark, and I was circling the bases. And when I came around, he was crying, and then I started crying, and that was definitely the most memorable moment I ever had in my college career.
So Dad's at St. Louis University, successful coach at St. Louis University. 125 wins there for the Billikens. In 1968, when SIUE begins their athletic program, he's lured away to start a new program, but you told me when we talked before there was another good reason that he went to SIUE, right?
Well, yeah, because when he was hired at St. Louis U, they only paid him $6,000. And then he wanted to hire Joe Ducky Medwick as his assistant coach. So they said, well, we're not giving you any more money. You got to pay your assistant coach out of that. Well, Ducky wanted $4,000. So he gave Ducky $4,000, kept $2,000, and kept his other job in the Collinsville school system and coached the St. Louis University Billikens. And they went to, they won 4 straight Missouri Valley Conference titles from 63 to 66. And 65, they beat University of Missouri and went to Omaha and the NCAA World Series at Omaha, and they lost 2 games there, but it was both to Arizona State that had a couple of guys, one named Rick Monday and the other one Sal Bando, were on those particular teams. So it was a pretty good club they had there. And I tried to get some of the old Billikens back here, Joe, to come back, and it was kind of funny. I didn't realize at first when I was calling them, but the same story was, well, you know, I'm 83 or 84, and that's past my bedtime.
So you were talking about a salary at St. Louis. It got better when he went to SIUE.
And, yeah, I think he got like $19,000, and Harry Gallatin lured my dad and Bob Gelker from St. Louis U, both of them. They both started the programs, and they both had the opportunity to start the programs. And of course, by 1972, Gelker won the national title in soccer, and SIU had made a College World Series appearance in baseball, and the Division II version of the SIU Cougars was pretty much a national power.
What do you think your dad would feel like knowing that the players of today are playing on a field named in his honor?
Oh, he'd be so happy. And one thing that I've had several people say to me tonight was that knew my dad well, that in the late 60s, he was way ahead of his time with a lot of things about analytics and using high-speed cameras and doing this kind of stuff. And then the great fun one that everybody has with it is called the elliptical swing that he was trying to teach everybody. But he was very sharp, and well, when he played, he did get to the big leagues. You know, he was 0-2 with an 11 ERA. And I think he was up for about a month. So his career did not quite match up to Les Miller's, but I think they knew each other at some point in time. But it was fun to watch him. And then his dream was to always have that baseball field built down there, and that meant so much to him. And then when they named it that in 1985, and then about 20 years or so later, John Simmons came through and upgraded the entire complex. And I'll never forget this, John, when we were, that Saturday morning when we were out there, we were dedicating the field. And I said, John, thanks so much for what you're doing for the program. And you said to me, yeah, but we're never going to change the name of the field. And that meant a lot. Thank you.
And in the same vein, how important or how much would he have enjoyed going into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame tonight with so many folks associated with SIUE?
Well, if you think I'm talking and running on a little bit, you haven't seen anything. He would have kept it going, and he'd have been up here. He'd probably had somebody up here, and they would be demonstrating some sort of motion. So he would have appreciated every minute of this.
Well, we're glad to have him. We're glad to have you represent him. Ladies and gentlemen, enshrined tonight in the Hall of Fame, the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, Roy E. Lee, represented by Bill.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Am I right that Roy and Les Miller pitched against Satchel Paige at the field in Belleville one time? They were on the Stags, and I think they won that game, is what I heard, right? They beat Satchel Paige. Wow. So lots and lots of SIUE connections in this winter enshrinement class, and our next inductee provides yet another one. His broadcasting journey has taken him from East Alton Wood River High School to SIU Edwardsville, through stops at 3 Major League Baseball jobs before landing the lead play-by-play television job with the Tampa Bay Rays. The franchise was brand new, and they chose Dewayne. He's been there for the last 26 years. Dewayne Staats, of course, I'm talking about.
I like to get to the park roughly 3 hours before first pitch. What's up, buddy? I've been here from the beginning, handling the Rays television play-by-play. It is the one thing that I had always wanted to do.
How'd you get that ankle bracelet off, Jimmy?
I'm wearing it for you. 1998 was the first year for the franchise here. They offered me that job. It sounded like a great opportunity and a great place to be. We are fashion trailblazers. TV is a collaborative effort of all of the camera guys, and producer, director, analyst, play-by-play guy.
Somebody fast forward music.
Hi again, everybody. Welcome to an evening of Rays baseball.
I believe that was from a Clearwater, Florida promotional video that we found on YouTube. And along the way, he called games for the Cubs and got the chance to channel the late, great Harry Carey at a game a few years back when the Rays were in Chicago.
All right, with the spirit of Harry, we're going to sing this song and we're going to sing it loud. All right, fans, a 1, a 2, a 3. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and...
You know how the rest of it goes. And Dewayne was not in the choir at SIU Edwardsville. There's much more about his career in the bio written by Dewayne's SIUE contemporary Steve Porter in tonight's program. And having been an SIUE classmate and broadcasting partner of Dewayne at our campus station back in the early 70s, we all knew that he was the holder of the talent and drive to be one of the best in the baseball broadcasting business, and of course, he's proven us right. He will certainly be in the Baseball Hall of Fame one day. He's already in the SIUE Alumni Hall of Fame and the Athletics Hall of Fame. So with your applause, please help me welcome Dewayne Staats into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame. Just like old times here, huh?
Yeah, just about 50 years ago.
Those are old times, all right.
That's right.
First, on behalf of us who knew you back in the day, congratulations on living out your dream. I know that's what you've always wanted to do.
Well, thank you. I'm not sure I was qualified to do anything else, and I tell people that I've avoided working all these years, and I've done exactly what I've wanted to do.
Yeah, and you know, you've had a lot of mentors along the way, but I know Gene Elston was a big one for you early on.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I have been the recipient of such grace, and as you know, a competitive business. I have two friends here, Roger Lewis and Frank Akers, and we went to high school together.
Still a friend of yours?
High school, yeah, still friends.
Okay.
And Frank had one of the great encyclopedic knowledge of the game. Loved the game. We spent so much time as kids. Great Cardinal fans. And I was 9 years old in 1962 when the National League expanded. And I had a little green plastic radio in my room. Our house wasn't very big and my room wasn't very big, so that little radio took up a big part of the room. But I figured out not only could I listen to Harry Carey and Jack Buck, but I could pull the Cubs games in, I could pull the Cincinnati Reds games, Bob Prince in Pittsburgh, and I could also pull in the Houston Colt 45s, the precursor of the Astros. And for a 9-year-old kid, that was magic.
Sure.
When I could tune Gene Elston and Lowell Pass on top of Harry and Jack, it was baseball heaven for this kid. And that had a great impact on me. And what were the odds that years down the road that I would work with all of those guys I was listening to when I was 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 years old? It's grace. It's pure grace. That's what it is.
Pretty amazing. Gene Elston's catchphrase was, on a strikeout.
Well,
He
Gene,
breezed him, right?
Well, that was Lowell Pass.
That was Lowell Pass,
Yeah, he
okay.
breezed him one time. But Gene, and I wrote letters to them.
Yeah.
And Gene would send those back to me. And I thought, this is a good deal. So I wrote Harry Carey a letter when he was with the Cardinals.
Yeah.
And he returned the favor as well, while Gene's letters were on Colt 45 and Astro stationery. It's no surprise. Harry's response came on Busch Bavarian beer letterhead.
These are the days when you didn't have LinkedIn or any other social media to promote yourself. You had to write those letters and really put yourself out there in an old-fashioned way, right?
Yeah, and they were all gracious enough to give me advice. You've got to get experience. You've got to go to the minor leagues. We were fortunate, all of us, you, me, Frank, all of us, to have SIU Edwardsville here. And the year we started, they put their student station on the air.
Right.
Well, if we weren't in the classroom, and frequently maybe we weren't, we were at the radio station.
Yeah.
And that was the greatest opportunity that I think any of us
I
could
tell
have
everybody
had.
that the OJT that we got at the radio station was far more valuable than the classroom stuff. Sorry about that, guys, at SIU, but that's kind of how I felt about it in the day. Take a look at this photo we're going to put up here and see what you think about that.
Oh, well, I see a fine young man in the cap who's sitting right next
That's
to
my
me.
treasured Stag
Yeah.
baseball cap there.
I mean, you're sitting to my left. Now you're sitting to my right. You're
Yeah.
handsome on both profiles. So
Give me
that's
a break.
good.
You
And-
probably remember what game we were doing that day.
Well, I mean, that was right out at the ballpark right
Roy
here.
Lee Field.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at
Well,
Roy Lee
it is
Field.
now.
And Al Barnes was there.
Yeah.
He was the great SID and,
Yeah.
and helped us along. I'll tell you, Roy, and you did a great job of honoring Roy Lee. We were all young broadcasters, and he was so wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And Frank and I took the southern trip with them on the bus, and Roy would talk with us, and he said, look, if you guys get a pro job, because the manager might not be as affable as I am. He would take us kind of under his wing and talk with us about his philosophy and the team and all that. And so he helped prepare us as well.
No question. You got 4 Hall of Famers there. You, me, Porter, and Al Barnes is in which Hall of Fame, Steve? Granite City Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that
Just
was-
honored to be among that group.
Yeah, it was great training, wonderful. And you told me earlier that your whole career might have gone off the rails at KPLR TV, right?
Oh, I spent 2 years in the minor leagues. It took me 5 years to get a degree, but I had 2 years of AAA experience. Well, you're young and you're aggressive and you're impatient, and so I'm thinking, well, now what do we do? And I wound up getting a job when KPLR first put their news on the air. And so Ted Koppler ran the station. Of course, they carried the blues. And here I am, this young guy. He was, in my way, he was the guy who hired me. So Ted thought it would have been a good idea, and as we all knew, KPLR carried the blues. They simulcast the blues with the great Dan Kelly, one of the greatest of all time. Well, Ted thought it was a good idea that his new sports guy should broadcast the blues on KPLR. Well, I'm only 22 years old. I'm going, I don't think this is a good idea. I mean, my career was going to be over before it started. And fortunately, sounder minds prevail there, and so I got to do some soccer stars in the North American Soccer League. But by avoiding that, I think it saved my career, because the great Dan Kelly, nobody was going to replace him.
Yeah.
And I was, I think it was because I had a degree from SIU Edwardsville, I was smart enough to know that.
Good thinking. So you've got your lovely wife with you tonight. Anybody else that you'd like to thank while you're up here?
Well, I'll tell you, I mentioned these 2 guys who have accompanied me here. There are a ton of people. I've been married to 2 wonderful women. My first wife, Dee, we lost her to lung cancer. And my wife Carla, she was widowed as well, and our families were close friends. Everybody knew everybody, so I've been blessed with just wonderful companions to go through this life with.
Talk about your kids.
Oh, I 2 daughters and 3 grandchildren. Our oldest grandchild, Gabe, the son of Dan Wheeler, who pitched in the big. Matter of fact,
I was going to ask you about
he
him.
threw the final pitch in Bush Memorial Stadium.
Really?
Because, yeah.
Before the new stadium was built.
He was in there at the time with the Astros.
Yeah.
And I was obviously with the Rays at the time. But they were in town, and so he threw the final pitch of that. But we have Gabe, our oldest grandson, and he's at the University of Tampa, playing a little baseball there. And Zach is a sophomore, and Evie, who runs the family, our granddaughter, is in 7th grade, and she's an outstanding
I see you get the
dancer.
cowboy boots on tonight. You do a little horsemanship these days, right?
We do. We own 3 horses. My wife, Carla, essentially is just a great equine specialist, and in her career has been an addiction counselor and in the mental health field. And so we have formed a 501c3 where we bring veterans and law enforcement people in to spend 3 days, maybe 4, in a weekend to address some of those issues and through equine therapy. The horses are great. Horses are just
Congratulations
fabulous people.
on that good work. Yeah. Way to go, Carla. Anything I haven't asked you about that you'd like to say?
No, I'd just like to say that I've been blessed to work with people like Gene and Harry and to absorb what they've had to say. You know, Harry I remember before I went to Chicago taking that Cubs job, they came into the Astrodome. I'm sitting in the press room with Harry, and he looked at the date and he said, "It's June the 24th, which just happens to be the anniversary of my first divorce." So he tells me the whole story. He said, you know, he's been writing that alimony check, and he goes, "I send it every month. I've done it all these years." And he says, "And I received a reply from my ex-wife on very nice stationery, I might add, responding to my question, 'How long must this go on?'" And he said, she wrote back, "Till death do us part."
You know, Barb and I were on vacation in Florida a number of years ago when our boys were small. And a Cubs game was on what was then the superstation, WGN. And Mark Grudzelanek was playing second base. And Harry, of course, had a famous way of butchering names like that. And I'm in the hotel room and watching the game, and "Here comes Mark Grudzelanek," you know, and I just fell off the table. But thanks for this, and thanks for flying in for this and receiving this honor from our Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, Dewayne Staats, our new member of the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame.
Thank you so much.
Well, try as we might, we couldn't find an SIU Edwardsville connection to Dawn Elser, but she's, you know, somebody who's definitely Hall of Fame worthy, as I'm sure you're about to find out. The St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, though, wants to thank these people up on the screen, businesses who were instrumental in helping make tonight's event happen. Thank you very much, all of you, and if you would please give them all a nice round of applause. Well, I wonder how many of our St. Louis Sports Hall of Famers have a school named after them and also have a father in our St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame. Well, Dawn Elser can claim both of those distinctions. A short personal story here. My dad was a Belleville alderman who also served on the Citizens Park Board back in the 1970s. And I would occasionally tag along with the old man on work days at the park. So I got to see the great Barney Elser and his American Legion baseball team practice at Citizens quite often. And I would marvel at the little girl running around in the outfield shagging fly balls off the bat of these high school-age kids. Little did I know then that I was watching our next Hall of Fame inductee. We did try hard, but we couldn't come up with a photo of Dawn playing volleyball at Belleville West, but she did, and that made her one of the few three-sport athletes ever, especially in those days. She competed with and against the boys early on and was ready for anything. If you read Dawn's bio in tonight's program, you get an idea of how special she has been as an athlete through the years, still holding many female athlete records at St. Louis U. But if possible, her career in education is almost more impressive. As you see, the people who operate O'Fallon's District 104 were appreciative enough to dedicate their school building to her dedication to the children there and put her name on that building. Pretty darn amazing. Please help us welcome, as we did with her dad, to the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, Dawn Elser. And Joe Pott is back to talk with Dawn.
There's a degree from SIUE there, right?
There is.
Right?
I went to all my graduate work and my master's degree and my specialist degree at SIU Edwardsville. So who would have thought?
That's all right. We found it for you, Tom. How special is it to be here on this stage and to be inducted into this Hall of Fame after your dad was inducted in 2018?
This is just an unbelievable honor. My father, knowing all the good he did for, all the young men of Belleville and the American Legion, I knew he was a great athlete and then a coach. To be inducted into the same St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame is just an amazing honor.
Who do you have here with you tonight celebrating?
Tonight I have quite a few people. My mom and dad would be very proud of me. Never missed a game in all my high school and my sports, college athletics. So for all of my family to be here, the aunts and uncles, lifelong friends that I not only made in all the sports that I have done from St. Louis U to high school, I'd like for all of them to stand. Nieces, nephews, please, thank you for being here. It means the world to me.
Thank you for being here. As Tom mentioned, you get your start, obviously, playing, with Dad's teams and being around the guys and being around those teams. What does that teach you? Where does that get you to start off in sports?
I didn't know any different, everything was all about baseball when all of us kids were growing up. That's all we knew. So if Dad was going to practice, hey, can I go along? But to go out there, the other night in the grocery stores, about 2 weeks ago, a man came up to me and he said, hey, do you remember me? I knew exactly who he was. He said, I still remember you catching those line drives hit off the bat of the guys. And I think, that is what made me the best ball player that I could be. Can you imagine as a 6, 7, 8-year-old catching balls in the outfield of those guys who were hitting the ball? So, it is, what made me who I was. That's all I knew. It was to work hard and to just pour my heart into all of it.
Dawn, Tom mentioned one of the few three-sport athletes, somebody that excelled in volleyball and softball and basketball. When we had a chance to visit, you told me that was something that was important to you. And obviously, it's a lot different than what we see today from athletes who are often wanting to specialize in one sport.
It is. Back then, I loved sports. The more I could play, the better I was. Volleyball, is a different set of skills than basketball, than softball. I was asked over and over again all summer, could I play softball? And I always said no. I wanted to play all sports. So Today's athlete, unfortunately, I think they focus on one sport, and I've coached at that level in high school, and they get to their senior year, and it's been softball I've coached, and they're like, oh, I'm burnt out, I'm done, I've played all summer. So I think playing all, different sports really kept me loving every game and loving sports.
And it influenced your decision to go to St. Louis University.
Again, I love sports. Probably my best sport was softball. I had a couple offers to play softball, and I always held that little bit that said, I love basketball. Is there somebody out there that's going to let me play two sports? And John O'Brien from St. Louis U came to watch a basketball game, and the next week he offered me a scholarship in conjunction with a softball scholarship, and St. Louis University gave me the opportunity to play both softball and basketball.
She did all right. 2 top 5 career records in basketball. She's still got 7 in softball at St. Louis University as well. I think it wouldn't surprise anybody that we, let them know that led you into coaching, but also into education. And you even told me you were surprised yourself at kind of the path your career took, from a professional to a teacher to an administrator, ultimately to superintendent.
Right, and I think it kind of goes back to sports, and you say, people are like, oh, they play sports, but sports is what gave me that commitment, that dedication, that drive, and I think of, somebody says, oh, you're just going into teaching, and it kind of really stuck with me back then to say, yeah, just teaching, but you think of all the lives you can influence as a teacher. I mean, there are thousands of kids, and then now kids having families and, the generation after generation that I've influenced. I never thought I would go into administration, but I just felt like, my leadership was something I could not pass up, so I went into the principalship, and then that led me to the superintendency. And again, the relationships I've built, it's just made my life very special.
We've heard from so many coaches or about coaches tonight, and you think about the fact now that somebody out there is saying how much Dawn Elzer affected their life.
Right, and that just means the world to me, whether it's athletics, my coaching, or, the students, first graders up to middle school kids, and even staff and parents, that if I influence students and parents and staff, that's what what I was put here on earth for, is to influence others.
And what would they say about Coach or Principal or Superintendent Elzer?
I think that she has the biggest heart of anybody that they've ever known.
And now she is a St. Louis Sports Hall of Famer. I present for induction Dawn Elzer.
Thank you.
Our website is stlshof.com. All of these interviews tonight will, sometime in the near future, appear there. We have that YouTube channel that Tim talked about. Anything you want to have said, Wes? The SIU Edwardsville people want to take a photo, and where should they do that? He doesn't know, but we'll figure it out. Over in front of the banner. Thank you all for coming tonight. On behalf of Tim Moore, Wes Edwards, Christy Scheidegger, our leadership team, and all of us on the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame team, thank you so much for your attendance and your attention, and let's go Blues. See y'all. Bye.